Howdy Howlers, today we're talking all about handlebars, so let's get into it. So handlebars are one of the most important parts of your bike. They're what you hold on to, they're what your brakes are onto, they keep you in control of your bike. It's a critical piece, and knowing why or what you want to get in a handlebar is really important to making sure you have the best performance out of your bike. So I have quite a few different handlebars in front of me, some of my favorite picks. I've got some different materials. We're gonna get into why you would want to get a different handlebar, what you're looking for, and compatibility with your bike. That's probably the most important thing. So we're gonna start here with the Deity Race Point, and it's gonna be kind of my test dummy to explain some of the prefaces you need to know when you're picking handlebars. So the most important thing is the stem on your bike is what clamps onto your handlebars, and stems have different diameter of clamps. There's either a 35 millimeter diameter or a 31.8. This race point in front of me is a 35 diameter. That's a little bit thicker. Traditionally, 35 mil clamps are stiffer handlebars, so they don't give and flex as much on the ends. That's because it is a thicker handlebar. They're a little bit more durable, I guess, if you want to get into that way, but 35 is generally what comes on most higher end bikes. That's what we're seeing for the past couple years, is you're going to see the thicker handlebars. It's really good for pedaling because you're not having that flex. It's pretty good for downhill to like push into corners. There's a lot of benefits, but this would be a 35 mil clamp handlebar. This is a 31.8 mil clamp handlebar. This is the Chromag OSX limited edition, so it's polished. This is, I don't know if you can tell, it's a little bit thinner in the middle because it's 31.8 millimeters. So that gives you flex at the end. These are great for like free ride bikes, if you're doing a lot of jumping, if you want some like relief when you're hitting downhill, have it flex a little bit. You typically don't see them as much on cross country bikes as of recently. That's just because they have flex and you want that power because you're like hammering out miles or whatever you gotta do. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But this is a 31.8 bar. Another thing to think about is there's different types of materials that bars come in. There's aluminum and there's carbon, and I'll get into why you would want to go with those, but there's also some like more obscure materials in bars. There's like titanium or like weird flex bars. Shout out to our cameraman who likes that, and those are weird. But we're just gonna stay in traditional bars for today. So another thing to get into is all these bars have different rise of handlebars. So this is a 25 mil rise. So here's your clamp. Here's where your grip would be. That's a 25 millimeter rise from there. And going higher generally sits you higher up on your bike, which is better for downhill, but conversely, it's worse for going uphill. You're sitting farther back, you're not as pedaling efficiently. You want to be over that front tire if you're trying to get fast uphill, but it is more comfortable on downhill. It'll sit you farther back over the bottom bracket, get you a little more into the steep stuff, make you feel a little more comfortable. So it's all rider preference. I prefer like a 35 mil rise bar. This is, for example, a 25 mil rise bar. These Deity CZ40s, brand new from Cams Inc. These are 40 mil rise bars, so you can see they go up really high. So of course, Cams Inc.'s a free ride legend. These are gonna be high rise bars. He's sitting real back, he's doing crazy steep stuff, doing big jumps. These are a perfect handlebar for him. So if that's what's interesting you might wanna look at some higher rise bars. This is also a 31.8 clamp. So you have a little bit of flex at the end. You may notice, you might not, but I think in these handlebars with the height, with how they're made, you're probably gonna feel that a little bit of flex because you're doing big hits, hopefully, with these bars. So another thing to look at is carbon bars. These are the 1UP carbon bars. These are super, super cool bars. These are super advanced as far as technology goes. They're great bars. They're really, really comfortable. They're great for long rides because they did something pretty unique. It's a 35 mil clamp in the middle, but as you can see here, I don't know if you can see that, they have kind of this tapered flat area that's supposed to give it the effect of a 31.8 in your hands. So you get kind of that flex at the end, which carbon bars aren't really known for. They're known for being very stiff. But these actually give you a little bit of flex because they added this kind of like 31.8 taper. I'm not a scientist, but if you are, you should probably look up why these are scientifically cool. But for me, I just know they feel good and I like them. So another thing to note with carbon bars, the more you cut them down from 800 mils, which is what most bars come at, the stiffer they're gonna become. Same thing with any bar, but for sure on carbon bars. Speaking of 800 mil, most bars come at about 800 mil length, and most bars have some type of notching here to let you know how far you can cut it down and what you're cutting it down to. Width of bars is pretty much rider preference. Your shoulder width has a lot to play in it. How you want the bike to handle has a lot to play in it, and what you ride has a lot to play in it. So if you're a bigger dude with wide shoulders that rides a lot of downhill, you're probably gonna wanna run with 800 mil bars. That's gonna give you the most control. It's not gonna be snappy, but it's gonna give you the most control on downhill. So if you're getting high speeds a lot and you want control, 800 is gonna be the best, and you can kind of cut them down from there. If you're doing a lot of XC, you're kind of running through single tracks, snapping through trees, you might say cut your bars down to 740 because you don't want to, smack a tree, and you want that bike to be really responsive, really snappy. So cutting your bars to, one, fit you the most comfortable, but also to fit your riding style is something that is really, really important. It can go from giving you a lot of arm pump and hand cramping to feeling super comfortable, and you have a lot of control on the bike. So that's something to think about, and a good way to do that is stand on your bike, start with 800 because you can't put more back on. So maybe just start in little increments, cutting off maybe 10 or 15 or 20 mils at a time, and just going from there, maybe doing some laps. I know that's kind of hard to just start cutting bars, but if you have a long day of riding and you just want to try some stuff out and you got a pair of new bars, might as well do that. So in short, if you're doing XC, trail riding, up, down, maybe in tight single track, you might think about doing shorter width handlebars. If you're doing a lot of downhill, free ride, big jumps, big drops, really steep, you might look at doing some wider handlebars, but that's just a suggestion. So last but not least, we're gonna get into upsweep and backsweep. This is pretty much preference as far as riders go, but it is really important to know what your back sweep is if your wrists are hurting, because you might want to do a different back sweep or up sweep. So this is just more of a comfortability thing, but it can change the ride and the feel of your bars. So a lot of these are different, so we're going to get into it. So starting with the 1UP carbon bars, this is going to be the most common that most handlebars are, which is 5 degrees of upsweep and 8 degrees of backsweep. So when you're looking at upsweep, we talked about rise, which is from the clamp to the grip, is how much the bar rises. Like this is a 40 mil, this is the 25. There's a difference right in front of you. That's rise. But as far as upsweep, it's from the clamp to the grip. So that's how far the bar sweeps up. Not to be blank terms, but so you can see it here. This bar has a 5 degree upsweep. So the bar comes up, rises up 5 degrees. And that is the most common. So this has a 8 degree of back sweep. So that's from the clamp how the bar sweeps back. I'm just saying the actual term. But anyways, that's how the bar sweeps back. So typically, if guys are having a lot of wrist trouble, they might want more back sweep, but I usually prefer a little bit less back sweep, 8 being the most back sweep I'll ever have. I just like it. I feel like it's a little more aggressive when there's less back sweep, which gets me into the Renthal bars. These are known for having 7 degrees of back sweep. These are Renthal fat bar aluminums. So it's a 5 degree upsweep, just like the 1UP carbon ones, but they actually have 7 degrees, so a degree less of back sweep. I just feel like these make me a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more over the front end, but not in a bad way where I'm gonna go OTB. They just make me feel like I kind of push the bar down. Again, that's just rider preference. That's how I feel when I ride with Renthal bars. Another one this one's a little bit different. This is the Cam Zink CZ40 model again. This has a 9.5 degree back sweep. So what I'm assuming, and this is just an assumption, that he wanted more back sweep because he's very behind the bike because he's doing some super steep, super gnarly trails. That's just an assumption. Maybe he likes just how they feel and that's why he did it. But this is a 9.5 degree back sweep with a 4.5 degree up sweep. So there is less up sweep. I typically don't notice very many differences in up sweep. I feel like from 4 to maybe 6, they all kind of feel the same, but that's just me. I do feel like I notice back sweep more than anything, and that's because I feel like if I have a bar that has like 9.5 degree back sweep, I feel like I have the tendency to roll my bar forward in my stem, which is probably something I failed to mention that I will mention right now. A lot of these bars have notches on the front or the top or the sides of them, so that way when you put it in your stem, you can adjust and know, are you in the center of your bar so you get actually straight up 9.5 degree back sweep? Do you roll it back a little bit more? Do you roll it up? It's totally rider preference. Typically I've seen a lot moto guys kind of roll their bars back a little bit more, where maybe an XC guy wants to have those a little bit more forward so he can get over that front tire and get a lot of traction when he's climbing. But again, this is getting into a little bit more comfortability, rider preference, so you kind of just have to make small tweaks and just write it down or remember what you kind of set up and see what works for you, because what works for me is going to be totally different from what works for you. But all these bars are on our website, as well as this sick wizard shirt. You can go on there, you can grab some, we'll ship it out to you ASAP, and hopefully your bike is 20,000 million times better after that because you have some sick custom bars for your bike, and maybe it's more comfortable and you get really fast and then you become in the UCI World Cup downhill or something. I don't know, but stay tuned for the next video, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.